This video is brought to you by SoccerPro.com, bringing you everyday low prices with no membership fees. Be sure to use coupon code SR4U at checkout to receive $10 off any order of $100 or more.
Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you a first look plus on-feet video of the brand new Nike Hypervenom Phatal 2 DF in the wolf gray, total orange, and black colorway. Now inside the box, all you get are the shoes themselves. They do not come with any extras. So let me get these guys out of the box really quickly, and we'll take a closer look at the first ever mid-cut takedown model from Nike, the Hypervenom Phatal 2 DF, where DF stands for Dynamic Fit, which obviously implies the mid-cut collar. Now there's a couple things to note regarding this particular shoe. Yes, it's a takedown model, which means that it's going to be cheaper than the top-end Phantom 2, which retails for $275. But with that said, the retail price on the Phatal 2 DF is still pretty steep at $170 US. Another thing to note regarding the mid-cut aspect of this shoe is that yes, while it looks somewhat similar to what you're going to find on that top-end Phantom, the actual collar and mid-foot portion of the shoe, where the laces are positioned, isn't actually made from Flyknit material, amongst other differences with the Phatal model in general. So we're going to be going over everything you could possibly want to know about the Phatal 2 DF in today's video. If you guys are interested in a pair of these for yourself, first link down below in the description, it'll take you to the review page on my website, and you will find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you will be able to pick these up below their normal $170 retail price. But overall guys, if you're interested in learning more about this particular shoe, please stick around and watch the entire video. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. To start things off, I want to talk about where the new Phatal 2 DF falls into the new Hypervenom line. Now at the top you have the Phantom 2, which retails for $275. Below that you have the Finish model, which retails for $200, and essentially everything you get with the Phantom 2 minus the mid-cut and Flyknit elements, which is not necessarily a downgrade, it's more a matter of personal preference. Below the Finish you have the Phatal 2 DF, which is what I have right here, which instead of retailing for $200 like the Finish, they retail for $170 US, which is pretty pricey for a takedown model. Now with that being said, the quality that you're getting here with the Phatal 2 in general, similar to the original Phatal, is actually pretty good. And really, if you want a mid-cut shoe from Nike at $170, the Phatal 2 DF is definitely going to be your least expensive option, because the Obra, the Superfly 4, and the Hypervenom Phantom 2 all retail for $275. So this is $105 less. With that being said, I don't think that this is going to be an option for everybody. If you're absolutely dying to have this mid-cut design, then yes, the Phatal 2 DF is the cheapest way of getting it. But you have to keep in mind that they also offer a standard version of the Phatal 2, similar to the Phantom 2 and the Finish, where you have all the same options that you get here on the Phatal 2 DF, minus, of course, the mid-cut design. So it has a more traditional cut and a standard tongue running through the middle of the shoe, and that's going to run you $130 US. So you're paying a $40 premium for this mid-cut dynamic fit collar that isn't actually Flyknit either, and we'll get into that more in just a second. And then of course below the Phatal 2 DF and Phatal 2 you have the Felon model, which is one single model, no variations on that whatsoever, and it's significantly lower quality than what you're going to find with all the shoes above it in the Hypervenom lineup. So just something to keep in mind if you are planning on picking these up. Yes, it is the cheapest way of getting a mid-cut shoe from Nike, but it isn't necessarily worth the money depending on what you actually want from your new Hypervenoms. If you're dying to have the mid-cut design, then yes, this is the cheapest way of getting it. As far as tech specs go, the Phatal 2 DF is a very capable performer, and given that it's a takedown model, it still has a lot of the elements that you'll find on the higher end Phantom 2 and Finish, most notably the sole plate and stud pattern, which is identical to those two higher end models. It's a glass nylon sole plate with the P-back stud plate on top. It also does have the more flexible feel like you will find on the new Hypervenom line in general. The split toe design, which isn't really a big feature as far as performance is concerned. It's not something that you're really going to notice while you wear the shoe whatsoever. And then of course they've stuck with the same Hypervenom stud pattern that you're going to find across the entire line that performs really, really well. One of my personal favorites from Nike. As far as the upper is concerned, it looks very similar to what you're going to find on the top end Finish and Phantom 2 models, but it is not made from Nike skin, and of course it doesn't feature ACC all conditions control, which again is something that Nike likes to keep exclusive to their top end models. Instead, what you're getting here is what they call Mirage Synthetic, the same thing we saw on the previous generation Phatal model, but not the exact same type of feel or construction. The last Phatal with its Mirage Synthetic upper was extremely thin and had more of a rigid sensation to it, whereas this year's Phatal 2 features a Mirage Synthetic that is noticeably thicker. This does not have a mesh base like what you're going to find on the Nike skin upper of the Finish and the Phantom 2. Instead, it's just a straight up microfiber synthetic material that feels a lot softer and more flexible in comparison, which some people actually might prefer. The Phantom 2 and the Finish, if you guys have seen any of my videos on that shoe, you know the Nike skin upper is not necessarily uncomfortable, but it doesn't feel the way I think most people would expect it to. It's very firm, which makes for a nice responsive locked-in sensation when you pull the laces tight. It really prevents your foot from sliding around on the base of the shoe, and it gives you that one-to-one reaction, that one-to-one response time. The second that you react is the second that the shoe reacts, whereas with this shoe, it's going to feel a little bit more comfortable out of the box just in terms of the softness and flexibility of the upper, but like I said, it isn't going to have that same responsiveness that you're going to get from the higher end model with that Nike skin upper. So it's really a matter of personal preference. I don't necessarily want to call this takedown upper better or worse. I guess if I did have a preference, it would be for the Finish and the Phantom 2 with the Nike skin, just because it does feel really, really good once you get used to it. But as a takedown model, especially considering they are asking a pretty high price tag for the Phatal 2 DF, I definitely am not unhappy with what they've given us here with this Mirage Synthetic upper. So it does have the kind of texturing here, the little embossed lines on the upper that give it the same look as the higher end models. Really has no impact on performance, and they have also incorporated Flywire into the upper. It's perhaps not as noticeable on this particular variation, at least on the lateral side versus the medial side, where again, has the same pattern. You have Flywire that runs from the base of the sole into the lacing system, and it really does help to secure your foot inside the shoe when you pull the laces tight. Gives you that nice locked-in sensation, and that's really what's important with any type of thin synthetic soccer shoe or soccer shoes in general, because you don't want to be sliding around, you don't have any rollover to the upper, you want it to be as responsive as possible, and you're definitely going to get that sensation with the Phatal 2 DF. Now the DF part of the Phatal 2 is what you're going to find running through the middle, and of course the mid-cut design. So you can see that around the heel area it doesn't have the same type of kind of streamlined finish as what you're going to find on the Phantom 2, which is what I have right here, which just looks a little bit more premium in terms of how the construction process has been kind of finished, and that's to be expected. I mean, the shoe does cost $105 more versus what you're getting here with the Phatal, where it does look a little bit cheaper, especially the actual collar itself. But to me, the biggest difference here, and the one thing that does concern me about the Phatal 2 DF, is that this is not made from Flyknit material. This is more of a standard kind of elasticated yarn that doesn't feel quite as solid or as sturdy as what you're going to find with the Flyknit mid-cut collar on the top end Phantom 2, which like I said, just feels a lot more heavy duty in terms of its overall construction. Now, of course, I will be following up with more content on the Phatal 2 DF once I get some testing time in these, but I will tell you that this feels a lot thinner, and because of the yarn itself just not feeling quite as strong, I would be concerned with snags and just general rips and tears over time with this particular collar, where that doesn't seem to be too big of an issue with the Flyknit models in general. I have seen some people here and there getting very small snags in the actual collar, and they could potentially tear depending on how somebody's cleat actually hits the collar itself. But that seems to be more of a rarity as opposed to something that happens to everybody. Whereas with this Hypervenom Phatal 2 DF, I definitely see that as being a stronger possibility just due to the material itself not feeling quite as sturdy, and certainly not kind of coming across as quite as high quality, I guess is the best way to put it, in comparison to that Flyknit material. Still has that same design where the actual seam is not going directly across the back of the Achilles area. It's kind of pushed over to the side, so it's very comfortable, and it still is elasticated like what you're going to find from the Flyknit material. It just doesn't look quite as good, and like I said, it doesn't quite feel as good as well, but the same effect will come into play. It's got pretty much the same construction in the heel area, internal heel counter, and you do have a smooth synthetic lining material on the inside as well, so there's really no difference there. And then of course you do have the elasticated material running through the middle of the foot as well, which does feel fairly similar to what you're going to find on the Phantom 2, and an element that I actually really like about the fit of this shoe in general. It does not run the entire kind of span of the foot. It only goes from here to here, and basically just covers the opening here where the upper actually splits off from being Mirage synthetic into this kind of elasticated knitted material, if you will. So the insole is fully removable as well. I'll give you guys a quick look at that. Mesh liner on top, your Hypervenom branding, and that kind of ortholite type of foam material, black in color. Pretty much the exact same insole as what you're going to find on the Phantom 2 and Finish, just without the fancy graphic there on the insole. But that is pretty much it as far as what you need to know regarding the tech specs of the Phatal 2 DF. You get the Mirage synthetic that does have the fly wire as well, so responsiveness is not going to be an issue, although it doesn't feel quite as solid as what you're going to find from the Finish and Phantom, but it is noticeably softer and more flexible out of the box. You do get the kind of elasticated Flyknit-esque material here in the form of the collar and the midfoot area of the shoe, but of course it isn't actually made from Flyknit, and it does feel quite a bit cheaper in my opinion. And then of course, again, you get the exact same sole plate and stud pattern as what you're going to find on the high-end models, which is definitely a plus. So for $170 US, this doesn't come across as a cheap shoe. It feels like a high-end model, but of course you do lose out on some of the more significant features of the high-end models in the Hypervenom line, both the Finish as well as the Phantom. So again, it really depends on whether or not you can justify $170 US for a pair of takedown Hypervenoms that do have this mid-cut design. At the end of the day, it's really about personal preference, and if you just want a pair of Hypervenom takedowns, perhaps the Phatal model, and you don't really care too much for the mid-cut design, you're probably better off going for the standard Phatal 2 that retails for $130 US, because you're going to get essentially the same shoe here minus the kind of knitted elements, the mid-cut dynamic fit collar. So again, it's really a matter of personal preference and what you actually want, but if you're dying to have the collar, this definitely doesn't seem like too bad of a deal. In terms of weight, I thought it'd be fun to compare the Phantom 2 and the Phatal 2 DF to see if there's any significant weight difference between the two, given that they do have the exact same sole plate, but the upper is a little bit different, and of course one is Flyknit, the other is not when you're talking about the mid-cut collar. So I'm going to weigh both versions of the shoe for you today in real time using the scale. Keep in mind they are both in brand new condition and both the exact same size 9 US. We'll start off with the Phantom 2, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.75 ounces, the equivalent of 220 grams. So pretty lightweight, not quite as light as the original Phantom, but light nonetheless. So we'll change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and we'll throw on the Phatal 2 DF, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.55 ounces. So you're talking about a 0.2 ounce weight difference, the equivalent of 214 grams. They are ever so slightly lighter than the top end Phantom 2. Not any weight, any amount of weight that you're actually going to notice either in hand or on feet. And I think the major reason for the weight difference between the two shoes has a lot to do with the difference in the actual upper material and the actual knitted material on the upper being a lot thinner on the Phatal 2 DF as well. So again, the Phatal 2 DF is ever so slightly lighter. Should this impact your decision on whether or not to go for the Phatal 2 DF or the Phantom 2? No, I think that really depends on whether or not you want that top end model with all the top end features, or if you just want something from the Hypervenom line with that mid-cut design, maybe the Phatal 2 DF is the better option for you. But again, if you're trying to decide between either of these two shoes, I don't think that weight should be the deciding factor. As far as the appearance of the Phatal 2 DF is concerned, they look a lot like the Phantom 2, especially from a distance. You have the same wolf gray upper, the same orange Nike swoosh at the front, the black Nike swoosh at the heel, the orange graphic on the lateral and medial side with that zigzag pattern, and of course the crackle pattern in black on the inside. Your Hypervenom branding there. Obviously, what's distinctly missing is the Nike Skin and ACC branding that you would find right here on the Phantom 2. The sole plate is all orange in color with clear studs, but again, unlike the top-end Phantom 2, you don't have any of that kind of crackle pattern graphic printed on the sole plate, which makes these look a little bit more simple. The biggest visual difference, especially when you're up close, is going to be the collar and midfoot area of the shoe, the knitted areas that aren't actually Flyknit like the Phantom. So with this particular shoe, you're going to notice that it does have a layered construction, but it's all one solid color, that same wolf gray. That goes for the collar area as well as the kind of tongue area of the shoe. Whereas on the Hypervenom Phantom 2, as you guys can see, you get the little orange ring at the top. You can see you have a combination of kind of like a lighter gray and a darker gray in the actual knit material with a mid layer that's actually orange. So when it stretches out, it exposes that orange there in the mid layer of the Flyknit. Same goes for here across the tongue, which I think is a pretty cool element. Again, one of the more premium aspects of this particular shoe. You also have kind of a crackle pattern there on the inside of the actual collar, whereas again, you have the same kind of construction here with the Phatal 2 DF, but it's not the same material. It feels a lot cheaper. I think it looks a lot cheaper as well. And that's really the one major visual giveaway. You're also going to notice that it's stitched across the back here, as opposed to kind of more seamlessly fused over top of the Flyknit like you're going to find on the Phantom 2. So very subtle visual differences. From a distance, it'd be very difficult to tell the two apart, but that is basically what the Phatal 2 DF has to offer in terms of just the overall visuals. So let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comment section. Do you like how these look? Why or why not? And with that being said, let's move on to the on-feet portion of the video so we can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit and of course what the sizing is like. Alright, so here is a look at the Phatal 2 DF on feet. On my left foot, I have the stock gray laces that come with the shoes, and on my right foot, I have a pair of black and gray Crackle SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, check out the website sr4ulaces.com. You find a direct link to that website down below in the description of this video. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, despite them looking a lot cheaper than the top-end Phantom 2 from the outside, when you actually have them on your feet, this shoe feels pretty premium. There's nothing about it that kind of screams takedown model, if that makes any sense. It feels high quality, I guess is the best way to put it. The Mirage synthetic upper is still relatively stiff, stiffer than what you found from the previous generation Hypervenom in general, whether you're talking about the previous Phatal or the previous Phantom, but it definitely does feel more flexible than what you're going to find from the current Phantom 2 and Finish models with their Nike Skin uppers that, like I said, just feel a lot firmer from right out of the box. So for the most part, these feel really good. They're pretty comfortable. When you pull the laces tight, the Flywire, it really does a good job of keeping your foot locked in place, and they feel nice and secure. It's a thinner shoe, so if you're looking for more of a barefoot feel, but not necessarily quite as thin as what you're going to find from the Mercurial line, that's kind of what you're getting here with the new Hypervenom lineup. And overall, I quite like how they feel. In terms of the elasticated areas of the shoe, the collar, and of course the area where the tongue would normally be, it feels very similar to the Flyknit collar on the Phantom 2. Again, it doesn't look quite as nice. It doesn't feel quite as nice to the touch, but when you're actually wearing the shoe, it feels very similar. So if you're looking for that mid-cut kind of dynamic fit collar experience, you're going to get it here with the Phatal 2 DF. Is it a necessary element for the Hypervenom line in general? I personally don't think so. Even on the Phantom 2, it seems like a gimmicky thing, and I think it's just as gimmicky here on the Phatal 2 DF as well. Again, it's just a matter of personal preference and what you actually want from your shoes. If you really want to try the collar, some people really love the collar, then the Phatal 2 DF is your best and cheapest option to get such an element on a pair of Nike soccer cleats. So definitely something to consider if you really want to try out the collar. But if not, if it's not a big deal to you, you're probably better off just going for the standard Phatal 2. Save yourself the $40 and get just as good of an experience, at least in my opinion. As far as the fit is concerned, it's got the same shape as the rest of the Hypervenom line. They are going to fit most people, but aren't particularly wide either. So if you do have excessively wide feet, probably not the best option for you. And given how they laid the Flywire out on the upper itself, you're really not going to get much stretch out of the shoe at all. The way it fits from right out of the box is the way it's going to fit for its entire lifespan. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US here, and the fit and length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. Alright guys, so for my first impressions of the new Phatal 2 DF from Nike. As a takedown model, it's above average in quality, but it's also above average in price. $170 is quite a bit of money to pay for what's considered to be a takedown model. But with that being said, if you can justify the price to yourself, if you're absolutely dying to try a mid-cut dynamic fit collar model from Nike, then this is $105 cheaper than any of their current options. So again, if you can justify the price, definitely a good pickup, definitely a good quality shoe. It's well above average when it comes to quality for a takedown model in general. But if you're just looking for the best value in terms of what you can get from the takedown models in the Hypervenom lineup, I think the better value is definitely the standard version of the Phatal 2 without the mid-cut collar that retails for $130 US as opposed to $170, which is what you get with the DF version. So of course I will be following up with more content on the new Hypervenom line in general, as well as the Phatal 2 DF and regular Phatal 2 video on those coming very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. If you guys are interested in picking up a pair of these for yourself, check out the review page on my website. It'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you will find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you will actually be able to pick these up below their normal $170 retail price. And of course, I'll be following up with a detailed written review as well in the next couple of weeks once I get some testing time in the Phatal 2 DF. If you guys have any questions at all regarding this particular shoe, leave them down below in the comment section, and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.